Welcome to Movie Heaven, Movie Hell with me, Simon Aitken,
And this is Keith Eyles.
and we're a couple of filmmakers who like to talk about other filmmakers.
And for any of you that haven't tuned in before, essentially, we pick a film director um, every 2 weeks, and we talk about a film that we really like of theirs and a film that we don't like so much of theirs. And the only rule is that we're not allowed to pick the same films, which can sometimes be interesting. um, and as this is episode 4, we are on D. Which this week is for...
It's for Brian De Palma.
Yay, Brian De Palma. Oh my God. I know we're on a bit of a time limit today, but I mean, we could literally be here all week. You know what I mean?
Well, he's got a massive filmography. I mean, started from the early 60s and, all the way up to now. He's still making films.
Absolutely. I mean, I have to say, yes, he's been one of those guys that's always been about, in the formative years and whatever, and becoming interested in film. And he came from that school and that movement, with the likes of Martin Scorsese and Paul Schrader and Francis Ford Coppola and guys like that. And I remember, for me, and it's still the case, but it always has been and still is, actually a director that I really like. Hence why I could talk a lot about this one.
Though I would say he actually sort of predates those guys by a little bit. If anything, he was on level with Francis Ford Coppola, because he was a independent filmmaker, and a lot of his earlier stuff, like Sisters, Greetings, Hello Mum, are very kind of revolutionary and against the establishment.
Absolutely.
And they were made before the likes of Lucas and Scorsese came onto the scene, but he integrated with those guys.
Absolutely.
Now, do you know the infamous story about the Star Wars screening?
What the casting where they sort of swapped between Carrie and Star Wars? Yeah, is that the one you mean?
No, actually,
Oh, right.
When George Lucas screened the film in its rough cut without any of the special effects, so he could show his friends the film, and of course Brian De Palma had loads of notes. It's like, what's this force the others? And he just, he tore it apart. And Lucas felt he had a failure, but it was Spielberg who was going, this is going to make millions. This is so great.
That's right. Yeah, Spielberg was the one who was very pro it, even when it had the sort of World War II airplane footage and whatever in there instead of X-wing fighters. Yeah,
exactly. Because
yeah,
I have to say, some people just don't know how to watch a rough cut.
No, indeed. I mean, no, the incident that I thought you were referring to was there's also sort of one in sort of movie lore and whatever, that when Lucas was casting for Star Wars, at the very same time De Palma was casting for Carrie. So they sort of had actors read for different each film. So like sort of Sissy Spacek read for Princess Leia and Carrie Fisher read for, bizarrely, Carrie. So he did sort of share a casting suite at the
That's
time.
right.
So.
That's right. And probably it helped Lucas a lot, because he wasn't exactly known for being very vocal, while De Palma is.
Oh God, dreadfully so, to the point that he does get a bad rap from certain journalists and columnists and whatever about some of his work. I mean, it is fair to say he's got a very much a style about what he does. I think the thing I've always liked about De Palma, regardless of whether he's well, some people say stolen from, others say homaged, but he's used techniques from the masters out there, that came before him, whether it be Hitchcock or Eisenstein or whoever.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the thing I really like about his films is, he's a very good storyteller, but he really does use the image and visual style to act as part of the storytelling. You know, there's that sort of thing about some directors just literally sort of set up a camera and let the actors do their bits, and they'll do the sort of standard master close coverage sort of thing, and just let the talking heads and the actors do their thing. Whereas you know, De Palma absolutely lets the actors do their thing, but you know, like Spielberg and probably, you know, nowadays Fincher or whatever, he kind of very much uses the camera and editing techniques and all of the other tools that, you know, we have as filmmakers to really enhance that and you know, give you a very much a visual experience, which, let's face it, that's what cinema is all about, isn't it?
Oh,
As Hitchcock
indeed.
says.
He has used split screen, point of view,
Steady cam, split diopter. You know, he's got all of his like little trademarks and toys that he likes to use, and in a very effective way.
people said that the violence in his films are very graphic, yet really it's more implied. You never really see the violence, you know. Okay, sometimes you do, but I mean, there are times when the violence is implied.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Which
yes,
we
and
will
yes,
talk
and
about in our picks, because
absolutely. I mean, yes and no on that. I mean, yes, he's obviously he's been very criticised, and he's had some of his movies very heavily censored for the graphic violence and whatever. But at the same time, I sort of agree with what you're saying, in so much as he also knows when not to show something and when to let the sort of implication fill in the gaps as well. And you know, he basically uses all of the techniques. And like you said, he's very much into he likes his, you know, 2:35 to 1 aspect ratio. He likes to do his overhead shots. He likes to use steady cam. He loves the depth of field, and you know, on all of those tricks, slow motion, split screen, yeah, you name it, he's pretty much used it, and a big master of voyeurism and point of view and things of that nature as well.
indeed, very much so. I was going to say, now I found that interview he did with Mark Cousins for Scene by Scene back in the 90s, and I sent you a copy of it, didn't I?
Which I enjoyed immensely.
It
Absolutely.
was, I mean, it was certainly somebody who he didn't really, you know, he, how to put it politely, you know, he really didn't give a fuck what Mark Cousins was saying, because he was there to sell his film, and he was being really what's the word, not
Blatant.
well, not blatant, but he was being a provocateur.
Yeah, no, I mean, he made no excuses for anything, and
No, but I mean,
you know, good on him.
you know, it was funny because I don't think Mark Cousins came across that aggressive to him at first, but it became like this sparring match, which was so interesting to watch.
Yeah, no, it did a bit. I mean, you know, to be fair, prior to that interview, I know, you know, De Palma had to deal with a lot of flack from you know, the press and journalists and things of that nature. So he was probably a little bit on the defensive. And again, you know, that certainly wasn't a bad interview. And but yeah, you know, he made no excuses for what he does. You know, I mean, when asked about the sort of violence to women and whatever, I like the way he sort of said that, you know, well, you know, A, that's what sort of makes a thriller, but B, you know, the reason he chooses women is because he prefers photographing women to men. And I thought, okay, well, fair enough. At least he admits it.
I mean, he's been married to Nancy Allen, and I didn't realize it, but he's I don't know if he's still married to her, but he was married to Gail Ann Hurd.
Yeah, no, they're no longer married, but yes, he has been married quite a few times, you know, to either actresses or film producers or whatever. But yes, indeed, he does seem to like the ladies and enjoys photographing them, and oh, we don't mind that. But I mean, I think his films, they kind of, you know, as a whole, sort of fall into almost sort of two categories of things. You've got your sort of suspense thrillers and whatever, and then you've also got your sort of gangster action movies, and he has tried one or two other things along the
Oh, I
way.
have to
But
say, I
you know,
enjoyed Phantom of the Paradise. I thought Phantom of the Paradise was really good. It hasn't made it into our selections, but
that was his musical, wasn't
it
it?
was his musical, and it's really well done. And it's, having seen it again on Blu-ray recently, it looks great. I
Right.
mean, this is before he did Carrie, so it was still really low budget, but it's kind of, it had the same vibe as Rocky Horror.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun, and it was very, different, because Brian De Palma films can come off a bit cold.
Yeah, yeah, and a bit samey sometimes,
Yeah.
but yeah, well, he actually said, like, he tried to do something different and did that comedy Wise Guys, which I must admit I haven't seen, but he actually said that he wasn't particularly happy with that because he tried something different, but it wasn't really his bag and whatever. And I kind of respect the man for being that sort of blatant about things, and not really sort of making excuses for everything, but sort of admitting what he likes and why he does things, and doing what he wants, frankly. Which, fair enough.
Well, a friend of mine did say that Brian De Palma is very good at keepy uppy, but could never do a full 90 minutes, using a football allegory.
All right.
But I disagree. I mean, I think majority of his films, as a whole, are great.
Yeah,
And
no, I agree. I like them.
yeah,
Again, it's probably, shamefully, I've probably not seen every single film that he's done, but I've certainly seen a majority of them because, once I sort of figured out who he was, which was, as I said, back in the sort of watching things on TV and video and whatever, then it got to a point where if anything came out, at the cinema, and I was, old enough and able to see it, then I'd be there just because it had his name on it. Frankly. So yes, another very influential guy in that sort of era, and like you said, still making movies today.
yeah. But I've never seen any of his films at the cinema. It's always been on video or DVD. I've never, to this date, seen a Brian De Palma film in the cinema.
Oh right, okay.
But then
But they're very cinematic,
oh, they
So
they are. I'm just saying that by the time I sort of got really into him and knew who he was, his sort of his time of making good films had sort of come to an end, because even the film that came out recently didn't really interest me that much, and it did get panned.
yeah, interestingly enough, is this going to follow similar to what we were talking about with Carpenter last week, where he had sort of his sort of peak, and maybe it's gone off slightly in recent years. I don't know. That's part of the debate, I guess.
Yeah, he hasn't made work that's made me want to go out and watch it.
Right.
I'm sure. I mean, I haven't seen Redacted or Obsession, and they might be really good films, but there's just something about those films that just hasn't made me want to go and watch them.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, doesn't appeal to everyone. Doesn't appeal to everyone's taste, and that's the thing. We are covering, filmmakers both past and present with these podcasts. So hopefully over time we'll have a fair variety of things. But the problem with De Palma is it is quite a large body of work that he's got
Yes.
out there, and I have to admit, in terms of my movie heaven, I actually found it very hard to know what to choose, because there are so many movies that he's done that are extremely good.
But I liked your choice. So speaking of which, Keith, what is your pick for movie heaven?
Okay, one of the ones that I wanted to choose, you chose, so we'll get round to that. Then and there were obvious things like Scarface and Carlito's Way, which I very much liked, and of course Carrie and whatever. But no, the one I actually decided to choose, which is probably a little bit left field, but why not, was Blowout, which was the film he made in 1981. it was following Dressed to Kill, which was a film that actually didn't do very well at the box office, and obviously was
Actually,
very
no,
heavily
you're wrong.
censored.
Dress to Kill did actually rather well. It was one of his better films. It sort of it did really well, and hence why he was able to go out and make Blowout.
Right, I thought it was poorly received. Well, maybe it wasn't that it didn't do well at the box office, but I know it got a lot of Dressed to Kill got a lot of bad publicity, and a lot of it was to do with the was the excessive nudity and obviously violence to women and things of that nature. But I know that the idea for Blowout did actually come about while he was making Dressed to Kill, and essentially it's kind of a riff in some respects on Antonioni's Blow Up film, and starring David Hemmings, and the from earlier Coppola's The Conversation. It alludes to have certain aspects with those, and obviously done very differently. I mean, in this case, essentially the setup for Blow Up is he's working with John Travolta again, who obviously he gave a break to with CARRIE.
Well, that was the fun thing, because John Travolta and Nancy Allen were both in CARRIE, and they both played boyfriend and girlfriend.
That's right, yes, and here they are in this film. I mean, apparently he originally wanted Al Pacino for this, who obviously he later worked with, but he ended up using John Travolta, and at the time was actually married to Nancy Allen at the point that they did this. And then, of course, other usual suspects. He had Dennis Franz in it, who was in Dressed to Kill, and of course John Lithgow, who he'd later go on to work. Who'd been an obsession, but he'd later go on to work with him again in Raising Cain. So, he kind of surrounded himself with his usual suspects very much. But an interesting film. It revolves around essentially, I think we always say in these, there are going to be spoilers and whatever within our podcast, because, it's very hard to sort of talk about the film without being able to go into, what happens and stuff in them. But essentially, John Travolta plays a sound effects guy. And actually the film starts off really interestingly with a low budget slasher film that they're working on. It's got every sort of cliche in it.
Well, yeah, but but done in a Brian De Palma way, because it's all one POV shot.
It is, yeah. It's a continual sort of POV take of the slasher, of the killer. Obviously, lots of scantily clad women and girls in showers and all of that good stuff. And John Travolta is essentially a sound effects technician. Obviously, because this was made in 1981, we're talking very much an analog world. Although in terms of the processes, just the same way that films are mixed today, it's just the medium is different. And it was quite fun because you see him using things in this which always bring a smile to my face from film.
He was using a Nagra.
He uses a Nagra to record the sound.
Exactly.
And then he uses a Bolex camera to capture the images, and then he cuts it all together on a little moviola. So it's he's kind of using the tools that are there.
That was lovely when he took the photographs and he put them onto film.
That's right. He made like a little flip book with it, and then he photographed.
And so he did it like an animation, and then he plays it back, and there's the whole film. I mean, the fact that this photo spread literally had every photograph the guy was taking. Now, of course, what had happened was that the guy had taken frames from a film that he was shooting that was supposed to be used as blackmail material.
Absolutely. I mean, at the heart of this, at the heart of this film, there is a government conspiracy, political scandal thing going on, which is where it takes its allusion slightly from the conversation and whatever.
Well,
And
also the the film of JFK being shot.
yes, absolutely, yes, indeed. And
What's that called? It's
I know exactly what you mean. It's completely gone out of my head though. Oh, I
is
wonder
it
if I
the
can use...
Prevuda? Oh, no, not Prevuda. Uda.
Yes, I know what you mean. Where they're basically looking at the shooting of JFK and
Okay,
trying to
yeah.
sort of piece it all together. Yeah, and essentially, as I said, it's a very nice setup. It's this guy is out trying to record some new sounds to
Well,
put in.
yeah, I mean, it was lovely at the end of that opening shot where the girl screams, and it's just
It's
like,
appalling.
it's
Yes.
appalling. It's terrible.
I hired her for her tits, not
It's
for her screaming. Tits are great, but the screaming's awful. Go out and get some real screams,
But it was the sound effect of the wind in the trees that makes John Travolta's character go out to record new sound effects. And of course it's just a lovely moment. And this is where it goes back to Blowout, where you see him moving the microphone around.
Absolutely.
And you can hear it. This is where the split diopter comes in.
It does, with the owl.
John Travolta listening to these sounds and what he's listening to.
Yeah,
on the same screen.
It's very well done. I mean, it's a good use of obviously the visual, but it is also a really good use of the sound design. And what I found quite interesting is I watched this again recently because I'd got the Arrow Video Steelbook Blu-ray edition of this film, and I think before that I'd always had it in my VHS collection, which I think was probably like a pan and scan and in stereo at best, and all this sort of thing. So I hadn't really seen it looking and sounding as good as it does, and it makes a really good. Obviously he uses his frame and his split diopter and all of that sort of thing. And this is the first film he actually used Steadicam in, which obviously went on to be a trademark of his moving forward.
But Steadicam had just sort of come into use just around about that time. You got to remember the first film,
Halloween.
No, Halloween. I don't think Halloween used glide cam. Steadicam was used really properly first time. The Shining.
Yes, it was. Yeah, which was, in fact, there's a great. Oh God, I'm going off topic here, but The Shining DVD, there's a really great commentary by the cinematographer talking about the use of the Steadicam on that. So if anybody's particularly interested in that, that's worth a watch. But yeah, I mean, but my point is, it was also a really good use of sound design and very, very good how the setup for him coming across this crime and this conspiracy happens. And as I said, he hears it, he records it, and he's now got this evidence that that the tire was actually shot out and wasn't just blowing out. And of course, the government want to, or the politicians want to cover it all up, and the girl that he rescues from the car that the politician's in that goes off the road is played by Nancy Allen, and basically he and she become in danger really because of what they know or what people think they might know, and it plays very good on the whole paranoia thing. Some really good setups. I have to say, not the greatest of performance by Nancy Allen in this, in my opinion.
I have to say, I watched it. First time I watched it was only recently, and the first time I watched it, her performance really annoyed the hell out of me.
There you go, then. Let's see what I mean.
But I went back to watch it for this, and I didn't mind it so much. I think going in, if you know what her character's going to be, it's less grating. I mean, obviously, you got to remember she's very naive. She's a very naive character, and I was sort of reading up about it, and she said that she was trying to play her a bit like a rag doll.
Yes, very much.
And in a way, she is. She's being used by all these men. Now, there's a wonderful moment in the film where I think any other filmmaker would have opened the film with this, but Brian De Palma leaves it for just before the halfway mark, and that is when John Travolta's character is talking about his past and about when he was working for the police, and you see them they're following an informant who's wired up trying to get this corrupt police chief.
Yeah, absolutely. As part of
And
his
of course,
backstory. That's very good. Yeah.
And it all goes wrong because this guy is really sweating. He's profusely sweating, and he shorts out the battery he's wearing, and it's burning him. And of course, John Travolta's going, you know, I got to get in there. I got to help him out. And the other cop's going, no, you're going to blow it. You're going to blow it. And it's too late. He runs in, and of course, he sees the informant he's been hung in the toilet with the wire.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. From a structural point of view, often, you know, a character's ghost and the character's backstory, they would probably start the film with and then come forward to the present. But like you said, it's very interesting that he chooses to give us that bit of information quite into the film, quite late on, before we actually find that out about this character.
And of course, what happens is that you know, it happens again with Nancy Allen's character. He puts her in a position where they're trying to capture the killer played by John Lithgow, and you know, the same thing happens. She's killed and she's strangled.
Yeah.
This time with a wire that he has coming out of his watch.
Yeah, very, very a la From Russia with Love kind of thing. But
yes.
But yeah, I mean, you know, the film, that's the other thing that's quite brave, I think, in some respects with it is, you know, this one definitely don't have no Hollywood ending. It's kind of quite a sad, quite a downer ending actually, with the fact that you know these two people that you know are growing close sort of throughout the movie and whatever, and at the end he tries to save her. I mean, it does get a bit ridiculous when he's driving through Philadelphia and sort of rushing through the crowds and everything to try and you know find her, and then he crashes and he's unconscious and he wakes up in the back of the ambulance, and obviously by this point Lithgow's got her and is essentially killing her, and there's nothing he can do about it.
Well, no, I mean, there is that he about that point, it's because he's pretending to be a reporter.
A reporter, absolutely. He's pretending to be the one that he was going to be interviewing. You know, again, that the John Travolta character was speaking to, and yeah, you know, because of the whole phone call and whatever, it then puts Nancy Allen in jeopardy.
So when he wakes up in the ambulance, you know, it's at the point when Nancy Allen finds out that he is not the reporter, that he is the killer, because he throws the tape and the film away.
Yeah.
And
the evidence is gone.
But I mean, it's a hell of a chase because
it's great.
John Travolta's got to figure out where they are by the sounds and what Nancy Allen's saying.
Yeah.
And of course, he gets there, he just gets there too late.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, it starts on the the underground train platform, and you know he's not able to get on the train in time, and then you know, as I said, he ends up you know driving and going across Philadelphia and gets in an accident, and then when he wakes up from the accident, you know, he's trying to get to her, and you know the sort of stinger at the end of the film, which it's kind of awful but also kind of amusing, is of course the you know, all of the evidence and whatever gets lost, but what he has recorded is you know Nancy Allen's character screaming as she dies, and that is then used in the mix of the film with the model that can't scream, and it's kind of like and it's like,
I'm not sure. I thought that was I thought that was what he was hearing. I don't think he was actually using the Nancy Allen's actual scream for the film. I think that's what he heard.
No, but that's what the wink at the audience is. You know what I mean? It's kind of almost perverse.
Quite possibly, because he does have the tape, doesn't he? And he's playing it, so maybe. I mean, it's.
Yeah.
That is interesting
It's
because
interesting,
yeah,
and it's very, I mean, it's very dark.
mm,
But it was also quite funny because, of course, the film producer is I mean, it's like a big cliche, but they've got all of these very amusing posters up on the wall, of sort of scantily clad women. And I remember there's one which shows like the bottom half of a bikini, and it's called something like Triangle of Lure or something like that. And I had to sort of chuckle to myself at all the sort of mise en scene that they'd thrown in there, in the background and stuff like that, to have
I
this
have
sort
to
of
say I
hokey
missed
studio.
all that stuff on both times I've seen it, so I'll have to go back and watch it again.
Yeah, it's definitely one for repeat viewing. The other thing that's interesting about this film is it is actually one of Quentin Tarantino's favorite films. It's his favorite Brian De Palma film, that's for sure. And one of the reasons that he cast John Travolta in Pulp Fiction was because he liked his performance in Blowout so much.
Okay.
And when you think about it, that was the sort of thing that sort of relaunched John Travolta's career after him being in sort of all of those Look Who's Talking films and stuff like that. It is kind of interesting story, backstory to all this. So that's kind of one of the reasons I picked it. But yeah, I do think it's a solid story. It's very well done. It uses all of his traits that he's become famous for, and it is very good at sort of keeping you on the edge of your seat. Filling you with some paranoia, the voyeuristic aspects, all of that sort of thing is in this. So I look at it as a sort of one of those De Palma films that is completely De Palma-esque, in his sort of thriller staple of films. So yes, so I'm sure there's loads of other things I wanted to say about it that I've forgotten, but there you go.
Well, there's one last thing I want to say about it, and it's the use of build up, because this is one of the things that Brian De Palma is really good at, and that's the build up. And so there's two scenes where John Lithgow is following. Well, at first you think is Nancy Allen's character, but just turns out to be a hooker that looks the same.
Yeah, misdirection. He's very good at that as well. Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, the thing is, how quickly now in kills in films today happen. They do happen very quickly. There's no build up. There's no tension. Like the second hooker he kills, because he's trying to make out that there's a serial killer going around killing red-headed women, especially hookers, and they're calling him the Liberty Bell killer.
Yes.
Because the Liberty Bell is going to be rung for the first time in 100 years. Hence why all the people out on the streets at the end.
Yes.
And so the second one where he follows the hooker. So you see the hooker being spoken to by a sailor in a train station, and then you follow what happens there, where the guy explodes his wad too quickly.
Yeah, in the telephone booth.
Booth, with a wonderful pickup moment from John Lithgow, where he's just in the booth, a couple of booths down, with with money, and he's just puts it on there, and the girl's like, just let me go and brush my teeth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, of course, follows her into the toilet, where he's then going to kill her in one of the cubicles. And the dance between him waiting for the opportune moment to do it, and once he does strike, all you see is from outside the cubicle and her feet banging against you don't see anything else.
No, absolutely. Again, I think he chose not to show, which is very good. That's part of a director's job, isn't it? It's what you show versus what you don't show. And
but this is the thing. I think a lot of directors today would have shown it. They would have wanted to see the god. While that was more effective than actually, really showing the wire cutting into her neck. And
yeah, no, I agree. I think that works beautifully. I mean, that whole bit with the with the telephone booths, it's got a bit of an air of North by Northwest about it, the way it's sort of
Yes.
set up,
Yeah.
definitely. But at the same time, it really works. And I mean, you know, if I think it's fair to say with De Palma, you know, like if Hitchcock, you know, is the king of suspense, then certainly De Palma is the prince of it. You know,
Some would say Prince of Thieves.
yeah, there you go. Well, you know, it depends how you look at it, doesn't it? Whether it's larceny or homage. But
What I was going to say, though, the flashback scene does feel very much like the scene at the beginning of Vertigo, where where Jimmy Stewart, you know, falls off the side of the building. He's clinging on, and he has his first bout
oh
of
yeah,
vertigo.
no, absolutely, yeah.
Which, you know, comes back to haunt him at the end of the film, which happens in Blowout.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a lot of things like that, and I mean, I'm sure, you know, there's some things similar in some of the other films that we're going to talk about. But yeah, you know, I really like this film. I hadn't watched it in a while. I did get to watch it again, and you know, I think it really holds up and really works. And yeah, so that's Blowout, folks.
Right. Now, my choice for movie heaven is The Untouchables.
Yay! Love it. Like I said, I'm a bit like you were when I chose Batman for Burton.
Yes.
I was quite jealous because, you know, I think Untouchables is a marvelous film, which I'm sure I'll, you know, go on about shortly, but not until you've had your say. So
Okay.
go for it.
Well, I watched this when it first came out on video, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was brilliant, and of course, who steals the show but Sean Connery? You know, I mean, especially the blood oath scene, where it's like he pulls a knife, and you pull a gun. You send one of his to the he sends one of yours to the hospital. You send one of his to the morgue. That's Chicago way.
Yes, you carry a badge, carry a gun. Gotta love Connery, you know.
And he is trying to do an Irish accent. There was a hint of it. It wasn't his it wasn't his Russian submarine commander. Sure, I'm a submarine Russian commander.
I think the fair thing to say with Connery is it doesn't matter what voice he does, it's Connery, and that's it. That's all you need to say, isn't it? It's amazing. But I mean, you know, obviously he won the Academy Award for this film, and rightly so.
He did, yes.
Yeah. So carry a badge, carry a gun. He pulls a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue. That's the Chicago way. Love it.
I also love the Irish police chief. Where are you going, Jimmy? I'm going to work.
Yeah. No, it's a great film. It's amazing. I watched it again in preparation for this and enjoyed every minute of it. So yes,
it is. It's very enjoyable. So it's they've touched upon the TV series and the sort of true life events and type, but not so much. It's still a piece of fiction. You wouldn't say these were the actual events that happened.
No, not at all. I mean, you know, let's not forget this. The screenplay for this is by David Mamet, and yes. Obviously, yes, even though Paramount had the rights to the Robert Stack TV series from the 50s and 60s or whatever, you know, this was a very different take on those you know, those events and those real life characters, but obviously massively dramatized. So, you know, absolutely.
The one thing I loved about the opening shot was you could see it was an overhead shot, and you have some text come up, sort of give you the backstory of what's happening, and you can see that the actors are actually standing there, you know, holding their position, waiting until the camera moves down and they start talking. So you can kind of see them. So it's not like a still or a frame hold. it's actually them standing there waiting for this. So you can kind of see a little bit twitching, a little bit moving, but it just seems like he holds that for so long. I think he's a bit, you know, he went, let's see how long they can wait.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. And apparently, although he chose to abandon it in the end, but they were going to bookend the film by having the same shot, but with Capone in prison. Yeah,
That's right.
But they, they decided not to go that route in the end. But yeah, no, but a great opening nonetheless.
Well, I mean, just speaking of that opening shot, I mean, it is a one-er shot. I mean, there's a lot of one-er shots in there, but what De Palma has done quite wisely is he's shot other materials like close-ups and stuff to sort of accentuate certain moments in it. So it's just not, so it cuts in from the one-er into like a close-up. So like when Robert De Niro gets cut by the barber, and he holds it out, threatening to the guy, and then, and then sort of, he's not going to do anything now. Just wonderful, that sort of hand move, just with his hand in a close up. Really well done. But he's decided that instead of just having these one shots, that he intercuts into them, so to point out certain information that the audience needs to know.
Absolutely. Well, it's right back to that. This is a man that absolutely uses the camera and the edit to tell the story, which is, what every good director should do. So, and, he's got fabulous actors in there as well. So can't go wrong.
But I have to say, it shouldn't make me laugh, but it does, is the scene at the beginning where you see it's at the, I don't know, at the shop or the store, and the little girl's there getting
the
Mister, you've got your bag, Mister, boom,
boom. Yeah, I mean, it's probably slightly over-egged. Yeah, no, I mean,
yes.
it's slightly pulling at the heartstrings for heartstrings' sake. It's like
I have to say, the press back then was great.
Yeah,
I mean, absolutely amazing. And because they're able to get like the front pages out so quickly. I mean, it's like the same night as Elliot Ness's bust goes bust, there he is, front page, Elliot Ness, Poor Butterfly, it's the same night. It's like, Jesus, they're fast.
They were on it back in the 30s.
Fast.
Well, they couldn't go out drinking, could they? So the whole prohibition thing, they didn't have anything else to do, right? So let's go to work and and get this to print right away.
But I mean, for me, the film really does pick up when Sean Connery comes in. That first encounter between him and Kevin Costner on the bridge, it's just really well done, because Kevin Costner is having this moment. So it's just, so up to this point, we're shown that he's a family man. That he has a wife and they have a daughter, and the wife's pregnant with the next one coming along, and she's just like, preparing him lunch.
Patricia Clarkson's first role, I believe.
It's funny because she was in her 30s back then, but she still looks like she does now. She always looked a bit older to me. It was always great. She looks great, but she always looked older than her years.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm sure she'd appreciate that now more than back then. What you said.
Well, I remember seeing her. I remember seeing her the first time in Deadpool with Clint Eastwood.
Right. Yeah.
So she looked like she was quite on the same age as him.
Ooh.
That's why I always thought she was older than she actually is.
Right. Okay. Well, moving on about the Untouchables.
Must we? Go on then. But yeah, so she's written him a note, that she's proud of him. Anything that any girlfriend or wife would do, and of course he throws it into the river because he doesn't feel proud. He feels like he's a fuck up, that he's his first time he's gonna make an impact, and of course the gangsters have probably bought out his informant, and the police had told him that they were coming, and absolutely, he's fucked up, embarrassed in front of everybody, and so he's just having a really bad day, and he throws this note into the river, and of course that's when Sean Connery turns up, and he's like, you shouldn't be littering. I'm not going to do Sean Connery's voice because I've already been shamed with my Sean Connery. It's not as great as yours. I bow to your Sean Connery.
Right, whatever. Who's going to save you, Junior? Oh, wrong film.
You got a beef.
Oh no, he's amazing. I mean, obviously, the actors in this do absolutely fabulous performances. But one of the things, again, back to the script and back to David Mamet is I feel like each of these characters, each of they've kind of got their own voice, because the four main Untouchables are very different, and that's, I think, kind of what makes the film so interesting. You've got the sort of father figure, Connery, the experienced, weathered policeman sort of thing, and then you've got the straight arrow Costner, who's Elliot Ness, who's very much trying to do the right thing all the time, and then of course you've got Andy Garcia in this, who's the marksman.
Indeed, he's the fresh blood. He is taken straight out of the police academy.
Absolutely.
And of course he's the best shot of them all.
Yeah.
And then of course you've got Charles Martin Smith rounding them up, and of course he is. His character is really good because he's just this wonderful art. Because really, he's just an accountant.
Yeah, an accountant with a gun. Yes.
Well, he learns to appreciate life a bit more, having to be out in the field and sort of taking on the gangsters, instead of being, behind the desk doing paperwork. But of course, he is the one who comes up with the idea of getting Capone for tax avoidance.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, it is the one thing in there where you're going, yeah, if you know anything about the story, the case, that's what they're going to get Capone on. And he's always there going, well, he's not paid any tax. He's had all this money coming in, but he's never paid any tax. And you're going, oh, okay. It's that thing about biopics where they have that one little moment or one thing that is what they're famous for.
Yeah.
Like in the Oliver Stone's The Doors, where they start playing the piano riff for one of the famous Doors tracks.
Light My Fire.
That's the song.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. No,
absolutely.
So it sort of has that little trope there where they have a character or an event where you sort of where that's leading to. But the shootouts in it are amazing. Of course, I have to say when each one of the Untouchables that get killed, you really feel it.
Yeah, totally. You're absolutely invested in those characters.
Yeah, so when they get killed, you absolutely fucking feel it. I mean, when Charles Martin Smith gets shot in the lift, oh my God, that really shook me.
Yeah.
Because you didn't think, that you did really think they were untouchable. You didn't think somebody was going to, as they put in blood, touchable.
Yeah.
You thought these guys were going to be all right.
Good old Billy Drago.
Yeah, I mean, the guy steals the show, but I mean, especially dressed all in white.
Yeah.
I mean, did you know who did all the costumes for this film?
Yeah, it was Giorgio Armani, wasn't it? And they looked fantastic.
They broke out the Armani for this film.
Well, I mean, everybody looked fantastic. This film was the film where I sort of first noticed, and obviously I'm a massive fan of, is Kevin Costner. I mean, I know he'd done a few sort of Lawrence Kasdan films before this, but this was the film that really sort of put him in the spotlight, as it were. And of course, he went on himself to then a couple of years later direct Dances with Wolves, which sort of became and still is one of my favorite films of all time. So Costner was quite a striking figure in his Armani three-piece, wasn't he? So we'd all like an Armani 3-piece in our wardrobe. I know I would, but there you go.
Oh, I got an Armani suit.
Oh, have you? Oh, very nice
I
too.
do. Yes, I was able to find one in a charity shop that fitted me. So.
Oh, good. Very nice.
So I get to break out the Armani once in a while.
Yeah, and of course we haven't talked about Robert De Niro.
No, we haven't.
Of course.
I just want to talk about Sean Connery's character's death, and we'll get on to Al Capone, Robert De Niro, because again, great character. But the build up of Sean Connery's character's takedown is great, because it's all sort of, again, a steady cam point of view shot where you are seeing what the one of the gangsters who's breaking into the house sees, and you know he's following him around, and there's a lovely moment where you can see Sean Connery knows something's up.
Yeah.
And of course he's over by his I think is it his record player or like music box or something.
Yeah. I mean, he's somewhere in his living
but you
room,
know he's got a shotgun
Yeah.
there, because the first time Elliot Ness, Kevin Costner's character, turned up there, you know, that's where he went to get his shotgun, because he doesn't like visitors. He don't like people going around his place, because if anybody turns up at his place, it's obviously to do him no good.
Yeah.
But yes, it's this wonderful thing where you think Sean Connery's character's got the upper hand, because, you know, that was the famous line. Oh, was it trust a wop to bring a knife to a gunfight?
Yeah, absolutely. And no, I mean, again, it's a wonderful, like you said, set up with the point of view camera, and then of course, you know, you think that you think that Malone, Sean Connery's character's got the upper hand, and again, it's a little bit of a misdirect for us.
It's a switcheroo, isn't it? Because Billy Drago's waiting there with a Tommy gun, and he shoots the shit out of him.
Oh my God! I mean, he literally empties the entire mag into him, doesn't he?
And he's like, still moving.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, a man like Jim Malone, it takes a lot to get, you know, to take that man out.
It certainly does. It certainly does. I mean, I do love the bit when Kevin Costner turns up and he's trying to sort of point out to him where the bookkeeper's going to be at the train station.
Absolutely.
And of course, Kevin Costner gets it wrong, hands him his lockbox key with St. Jude on it.
That's right. Yeah.
And he's like, bloody idiot! Yeah, not that.
Not that.
Throws it.
Not that, you bloody idiot. Yeah. No, I mean, it's you know, it really is quite a moving scene, actually. And you know, I'm glad that Connery won the Academy Award for this, because you know that it was a great performance at that point in his career. And
but of course, another great performance was Robert De Niro, because he did come across as like a junkyard dog, I felt. I mean, the great scene where he's got the baseball bat and talking about baseball.
Yeah.
You know, teamwork.
That's a frightening scene. And again, another one where, I mean, okay, I know he cuts to a famous overhead afterwards, but another bit to sort of hammer the point home that you made is that you don't actually see, you know, it's off frame. I mean, it's brutal, but you know, you see him swinging the bat down onto the table, you know, but the head is out of shot until you cut to the overhead and see all the blood and all this.
You see the pool of blood, yes.
But I mean, wonderfully, beautifully done.
Oh yeah, because I mean, it's shocking because there is tension in the air, but you don't know what's going to happen.
No.
I mean, you know that, you know, okay, he's got a baseball bat in his hand, but you don't know he's going to use it.
No.
I mean, up to this point, you hadn't seen him get his hands dirty at all.
No, absolutely.
It's been all the other gangsters that work for him that have been getting their hands dirty. So at this point, you don't know what's going to happen. It could have been that, like, because Billy Drago's character is there. That's the nice thing. You see all these gangsters who appear in, you know, in different shootouts and everything at these tables and all the scenes in the hotel. They're always there. It's never suddenly, oh look, here's a gangster that's come from nowhere. You know, they've been there all the time. They've been there in the background. you know, Billy Drago could quite have easily shot the guy
Yeah.
under orders, but you know, Al Capone gets his hands dirty. And
Well, I mean, the whole thing is kind of interesting with Robert De Niro and this particular role because obviously, you know, De Palma had worked with De Niro way back at the beginning of his career.
oh, that's right. He introduced De Niro to Martin Scorsese.
Absolutely. Because of the type of actor De Niro is, and because of his whole, you know, method and his preparation for roles, and his you know, changing his physicality and things of that nature. You know, Robert De Niro wasn't sure that he could be ready for this in time. You know, because he wanted to put weight on for real and things of that nature. So there was some, and of course he was going to cost quite a lot as well. So there was some. There's a story that there was some, you know, there was a good chance that he wasn't going to be in it. So De Palma actually had,
I know this story.
Yeah, he actually had Bob Hoskins as a backup just in case. And apparently, you know, of course, De Niro ended up agreeing to do it, but Bob Hoskins got a paycheck anyway for sort of the no work, no play thing, or pay, no play, or whatever.
Pay or play.
Yeah, pay or play. So
play, yeah.
He sort of said, well, you can not use me in a movie anytime. but you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing as well as I read was that De Niro, you know how he is method and stuff. So he actually had Al Capone's underwear.
Yes, yeah. Even though you don't see it, he had to have it. Yeah, absolutely.
And also props in certain scenes, especially the barber scene at the beginning. There were actual props that belonged to Al Capone there. You just, you know, little things to get him in touch with the character.
But this is why he's so wonderful.
Yeah, well, yes and no. I mean, really, do you need all that to be in character? You know, it's an expense that they could have probably done without.
Yeah, I mean, he is extreme. You know, it's like I had to do a presentation not long ago on this Scorsese course, and I had to talk about Cape Fear in it, and people were amazed when, you know, they found out that he actually, you know, he paid something like $3,000 to have his teeth ground off for the role of in it, and then paid like a further £20,000 or something to have $20,000 to have his teeth recapped afterwards. And you know, these sort of extremes, it's like, well, you know, hey, you know, the performances are there, so I'm not going to knock it at all.
Yeah, true. It works for him. It's his method, but I would not recommend that to anybody.
Any struggling actors out there? Yeah.
That's it. I mean, it's true. I mean, if you're going to be on drugs, do you really need to go out and take drugs? No.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's
not at all. It's called acting.
Yeah. We'll get into all sorts of war stories if we go down that path, won't we? My dear boy.
Oh, indeed. But we can't talk. We can't leave the Untouchables without talking about two things.
Go on, then.
First one is Ennio Morricone.
Oh, wonderful score! Wonderful, amazing, uplifting.
I had the pleasure of seeing Ennio Morricone play at the Royal Albert Hall, and of course they played.
That must have been amazing.
It was great.
Oh, I mean, I'm jealous of that, very much so.
Well, unfortunately, the seat I was sitting next to a gentleman who had a breathing problem. So,
oh dear.
Yeah, it kind of soured it a little bit for me, but still, it was a great time.
If it had been John Williams, it'd have been fine. You could have just pretended it was Darth Vader, but in this case, it just didn't work, right?
But yeah, I mean, it was wonderful to hear the music from the Untouchables played in it, because it's great. It just lifts the film. Yeah. I mean, there's certain moments in the film where the music just lifts it up and just puts it up on a different level than, say, if it had been another composer. I have to say, it's one of the major things that makes this film so good is the score.
I agree.
It's a rousing score.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you. I mean, I love Morricone's work anyway, but in this particular case, um, it's a wonderfully moving and uplifting and very medolic score, and yeah, I've got nothing but agreement with you on that one. It's fantastic, and it does make, it is that extra level on what's already a great movie, a great script, great actors, great performances, well directed, and that's the thing that finishes it off so beautifully is the music. Absolutely,
It is.
enhancing the Giorgio Armani.
Well, do you remember on BBC Two they used to have like a program? It used to be, I think it was like filler. It was like for 5 or 10 minutes, depending on how much they had left, and they would always show it after the like sci-fi show at 6 o'clock on BBC Two.
All right.
They'd always start off with, it would be a blue sky, and you would hear it was the track from The Mission, and this eagle would fly in.
Oh, right. Okay.
And then it would be like then it would be shots of like mountains, snow caps and all this stuff, and it'll all be to the. And I remember that was my first time I was aware that I was listening to something by Ennio Morricone, and it's so rousing, and it soars, and a lot of his music does that, especially in the 80s, where it's very much the music soars,
Yeah.
above you, and you feel like you're flying sometimes, and that track from The Mission does that, and it was also just from that program that they would show. I mean, that's my memory of Ennio Morricone. And I mean,
oh, absolutely, the final shot, that shows Chicago as Elliot Ness is walking down, towards the station and whatever, and that music on that bit is absolutely incredible. It's just like, wow, this is amazing music. So yeah. Cool.
But the other bit we need to talk about, of course, is the Union Station shootout.
Yes.
Yeah, which is a homage to Battleship Potemkin.
Yeah, by Eisenstein. I mean, absolutely. It's what I like is, people say, if you're going to steal anything, steal from the best. Yeah. But what I like is he put an original spin on it, because he took the pram sequence and the stairs and everything in the station, but putting that in with a slow-mo gunfight was amazing. That scene's incredible, and it's so beautifully done.
Also the fact that so Elliot Ness is waiting for the bookkeeper to turn up, and it's close to the train boarding. And of course, all these other characters come in. So there's sailors, which is, of course, is a nod to Battleship
nod to Potemkin. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you've also got other people who are like red herrings. They look like they could be gangsters, but they're there to meet other people. There's a guy who helps like a whole lot, like a family or a whole group of people with their luggage. And then, of course, there's the guy waiting for his girlfriend. And of course, all the time this is happening, this poor mother is trying to take her pram up the stairs. Now, why Elliot Ness would go down there and do that? Because it's been shown throughout the whole film, he's a family guy. He cares about family. He cares about children. And so when he sees a mother in distress, he's going to go and help her. And of course, when he makes that decision, it's like, the train is just about to go. It's 12 o'clock. He thinks they're not going to turn up. Yeah. So it's all right to go down there and help. And of course, as soon as he does that, that's when the guys turn up. And of course, the guy who recognizes him is the guy he hits in the staircase after Charles Martin Smith's death. When he goes to face Al Capone, because in real life, those two characters never met.
No, exactly. That was part of the dramatization. Yeah, they weren't in court together or anything, but it works wonderfully in the film. But no, I mean that scene again, the build up, the tension, the way that's set up, the whole thing with the woman, struggling up the stairs, the setup is wonderful, and then the whole payoff, with the gunfight and Andy Garcia's character sweeping in, to help with the pram at the last minute, and you know, it's all beautifully done, and
It does, and also the fact that on the look on the baby's face, he looks like he wants to go and do it again.
yeah, no, absolutely, he kind of enjoyed that ride. Yeah, no,
I know,
absolutely.
but did you notice the pram got hit about twice in that sequence?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, very lucky baby.
But you know, apparently, again, another story. I don't know how true this is, but and again, it just sort of shows, you know, the fact that Brian De Palma makes something of what he's got is, initially they wanted to have a much more elaborate sort of train chase and
Oh
gunfight, which
yes,
they later use in Carlito's Way. Yeah, but obviously, you know, they were well over budget by this point, and they'd done the whole thing in Montana with the Canadian border and the horses and the John Ford, you know, imagery and all this sort of thing, and because of all the production design and the costumes and the cars and all the and De Niro and all this sort of thing, they kind of didn't have the budget to do what he wanted to do. So apparently, you know, that's why he chose to sort of set that scene up and have the gunfight and obviously homage the whole Potemkin thing as part of it. And I think, my God, that works so well. So you know, it's amazing.
well, I mean, you know yourself, Keith, that a lot of times you plan to do something, and of course it never quite works out that way. But sometimes it works out to be much better.
Absolutely, which is the beauty of it, isn't it? Yeah.
You come up with a solution that is far better than what you thought, you know, what you originally dreamed up.
Yeah, well, the limitations can push the creativity, most definitely, and it certainly did here with well, what is now a become a sort of classic cinema scene, hasn't it? Because
It
it
has,
works
yeah.
so nicely and is studied by film students, you know, to this day. So
Yeah, the thing I like as well is that Billy Drago's character he is given a right proper send off, isn't he?
yeah, well, I mean, it's funny that that end scene. I mean, you mentioned earlier about how you felt there was some, you know, in Blowout, you mentioned there was some sort of allusions to the beginning of Vertigo, and I kind of felt that a little bit in the rooftop stuff with Costner and Drago towards the end of the Untouchables. You know, I sort of felt that there were a few elements and references there that were similar and had that sort of similar feel about it. You know, which of course
But
Wolf.
yeah, but I mean, I mean the fact that you know, he's goading him. You know, he's like your friend screamed like a pig,
Oh yeah, yeah, that,
big fat Irish pig, and of course he looks like he's going to push him into the door, isn't he?
yeah.
And then just sort of at last minute swerves to the right and pushes him out off the roof.
And you just wanted that to happen, didn't you?
Oh, you did, didn't you? You really wanted it to happen to that guy. I mean, all credit to Billy Drago. He made a really nasty character. You just wanted to see really punished, and you get it. And then not only do you get to see him crash into the car, but then it cuts back to the aftermath when they ask where he is, and Kevin Costner's like, he's in the car.
Yeah, yeah.
You think, oh, oh, wait a minute, and then they cut back to his body in the car, just to show he's dead.
Yeah.
It's all right, everybody. He's dead. He's gone. He's not coming back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, again, another wonderful sequence, you know, that thing you were saying about he allows, and again, he does here. He allows time to breathe. He allows these things to happen. I mean, you've got before that even happens, you've got the whole bit where Billy Drago's trying to get down the building on the rope, and Costner's got him in his sights, and you've got that
and
wonderful
he should shoot
shot.
him.
Yeah, and it's just amazing.
He could shoot him, and he decides not to. He decides, you know, to do the proper way, bring him in, you know.
Yeah.
But of course, then, you know, Billy Drago's character just screws it up.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, if he had kept his mouth shut, he'd be still alive. But thankfully, he didn't, and off he went.
And again, the other thing that again probably sort of lifted from Hitchcock amongst others, but the other thing that De Palma's really good at using are the close-up insert shots. Just like in Blowout, he did it with the Bolex and the Nagra and whatever. He does it with the gun while he's pointing, and he takes the safety off, and you know, all of those sort of things really work.
We are missing the most important close-up in this whole film. the box of matches.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, with the address.
He interrupts that one shot with when they break into Sean Connery's apartment with a close-up of the matchbox with the address on it, because they, again, when Kevin Costner's character wants a cigarette and he just, B. Drago's emptied his pockets out, and he finds his matchbox and he just picks it up to have a light, and then suddenly he goes, I had a friend at this address.
Yeah. Oh, you had the beautiful foreshadowing and then the payoff, and it really works nicely. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's not winky obvious. It just works within the story beautifully. So yeah, no, I agree. Absolutely. Fantastic.
I would say if you've not seen The Untouchables, it's well worth checking out, and it's it still stands up to this day. So
yeah, even though we've told you everything that happens, it's still worth a watch.
Indeed, it is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, and it's well worth a watch.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's amazing. It would have been the one that naturally I would have probably chosen as my movie heaven. But I'm so glad you did, so that I can wax lyrical about it as well. Fabulous.
There you go. Right, Keith, let's move on to your movie hell. What's your pick?
Oh, God. Right. Okay. Well, that, as I said, there are some of his later films that I haven't seen. And, I was a bit worried because I like most of his films. I was a bit worried about what to choose. And it's funny, I chose one and I went back to watch it to absolutely make sure that this was the case. And, I'm sorry to say, to me, this is almost unrecognizable as a De Palma film in many ways. And that is 2000's Mission to Mars. Okay.
Yes.
Which was written actually, but again, why doesn't this work? Oh, first of all, I'm going to point out that I haven't got anything against Mars movies because obviously the John Carpenter one, I chose Ghosts of Mars, and now I'm choosing Mission to Mars, and it's got nothing to do with Mars. I'm sure it's a great planet,
No, but it seems that Mars movies has something against us.
Well, I mean, this one, obviously, I think around the same time, there was the other film Red Planet with Val Kilmer out, which again, to my knowledge or my memory, wasn't particularly good. But I went back and revisited this one because I sort of thought, well, this should work because obviously it's De Palma. It's science fiction, so it's slightly moving away from his usual genres, but written by Jim and John Thomas, who are responsible, for Predator and whatever, and Graham Yost, so it's got good people involved and a wonderful cast. You got, Gary Sinise, who he later goes on to work with in Snake Eyes.
Snake Eyes was before.
Oh, it's before this. No, of course, absolutely. Yeah. So he's got Gary Sinise, who he'd worked with on Snake Eyes. My bad. But you've also got Tim Robbins, Don Cheadle, Connie Nielsen, Kim Delaney. This has got a very good cast of actors.
Oh, don't forget Jerry O'Connell.
Oh, Jerry O'Connell, absolutely. And it's one of those films. This was the time where visual effects wise, John Knoll, was the visual effects supervisor, who'd obviously worked on some of the, from Star Wars right the way through to all of those films. It's got, it uses a number of different techniques and whatever. And, even the plot, I mean, this is supposed to take place in 2020. So it's only 5 years now.
I know. They got to hurry up. I mean, all this technology they have in it, we're nowhere near it.
Exactly. All this trip to Mars. But essentially, there's a mission to Mars that Don Cheadle goes on, and they lose contact with him and his team, and a team consisting of Tim Robbins' character and Connie Nielsen, who are a couple, and joined by Gary Sinise's character, go to sort of find out what's happened and rescue. It's like on a rescue mission. Obviously, this, back then they didn't have the technology for the spacewalk scenes that you'd have in something like Gravity, or Interstellar or anything like that. But here's the thing. I'm trying to sort of sum it up as to why I didn't think it worked. And the reason being is, and there's no pun intended when I say this, but it absolutely lacked atmosphere, literally. Okay. What I don't understand is there is a scene in it where, of course, everything goes wrong, and the hull of the space vehicle they're in is breached, and that the helmet is cracked, and they have to get another helmet, and they have to sort of they end up locating using Dr. Pepper. I don't know if there was some sort of marketing publicity product placement thing going on, but what I don't understand is Brian De Palma, who we pointed out is the absolute master of suspense and build up and keeping you on the edge of your seat and all of this sort of thing. And they've done it beautifully in loads of his films. And one that totally springs to mind that was just before this was, or not long before this, was in Mission Impossible, the wonderful vault scene at the CIA where he's got to go in and, hack the computer without touching the floor and without changing the temperature. And there's a rat coming up the ventilation system, and there's the knife falls and all this stuff happens, and it's beautiful. So you've got a similar scene in this where there's a hull breach. I mean, that's a pretty big problem, but there's no tension, there's no I can't describe it. It really does lack atmosphere, quite literally. It doesn't work.
The other problem as well is that the characters in it make such stupid mistakes. I mean, they seem to be the crew from Prometheus before Prometheus. So
I love that reference. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean,
Gary Sinise's character they say to him, "Put on your spare helmet." He goes, "There isn't enough time," and then of course nearly suffocates.
Yeah, I mean, it's just essentially this is the other weird thing, right? You've got these, and I mean, none of these actors are poor. You've got a really good cast of great actors in this, right? However, whereas what we were just talking about with the Untouchables, you really ended up caring about these characters, so that when they started dying and stuff, you really felt for them and you really were bothered by that. In this, I'll be honest, I wasn't really fussed at all. I didn't. There was no jeopardy. I didn't feel that they were in trouble. I didn't really care that they were in trouble. And it's really weird because, again, Morricone does the music.
Yeah.
You've got John Knoll doing the effects. You've got, what I don't get is all of the elements were in place, but it's almost like the cake didn't rise. The ingredients were all there, but the cake just didn't rise. It just does not work, and you end up kind of not caring, really.
I remember when this came out, because I was working at a cinema at the time, and I remember the trailer for it, and it was trying to make it look like 2001.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It was kind of going for that look. I mean, they actually had like a rotating ring, just like in the Jupiter mission.
Yeah.
And and that, again, it's a trick that's used to very little effect. I mean, you just see one character walking along past Garrett Sinise's character sitting there, and then you hear music, and of course Tim Robbins and Connie Nelson are dancing in zero gravity, and it's just like, it's cutesy, and it's but I mean, also the fact, worst beginning to a sci-fi film ever.
A barbecue.
A barbecue. I mean, this is not how you get people excited in your film.
Yeah.
Yes, this is a way you get to introduce people, but there must have been a much better way to do this. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, Gary Sinise's character, he has an interesting backstory where his wife
died. His wife died,
and he came out of the program to look after his wife, and when she died, that was it. It kind of ruined him, and they didn't want him back in because he wouldn't take psych tests, and they felt they couldn't trust him.
Yeah, no.
I mean,
absolutely.
this is actually what the European controller is saying. The guy in charge of all this said, "I could not trust him," and okay, wow, you're really insensitive, mate. The guy's lost his wife to cancer. So you could have started with that instead of it's sort of more, you hear about it during this barbecue, and you meet him. You know, Gary Sinise turns up near the end, and you know, say goodbye to his friend Don.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of exposition, actually.
It is a hell of a lot of exposition and character, you know, but it's just really done boring. It's really boring.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is a boring film, and it's weird because the end, when they kind of, you know, basically there's this like face-like structure on the surface of Mars, yeah, and you know, they go and they end up getting inside this this what essentially ends up being just a big white room, and you know, it's a ship, and you know, there's you know, aliens that that you know, they're saying that were the seed, if you like, the seed that made all the life on Earth happen, and all this sort of thing.
And the thing was as well, because so it's like the face is holding the last ship.
That's right.
That they left behind, and but of course the face had a hell of a defense system, where it literally, if you didn't pass the test, it would actually swallow up and spin you to death.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a bit where you see one of the astronauts get ripped to pieces because he's been rotated so fast.
Yeah, he's in a vortex. His limbs will fly off.
It left Don Cheadle alone because it could understand that he knew there was something going on.
Yeah.
You know, the force came out. They said the force came out the mountain and took the others, yet left me alone because I knew something. And that's like, wow, that's a hell of a fucking reach. I mean, that's not friendly aliens, because when you see the alien, wow, it's cutesy, isn't it?
Oh, yeah,
it's a lovely alien.
It's sort of early CGI stuff, but yeah, I mean, all of that, you know, that actual sequence itself is not that bad, but it just doesn't. I don't know. It just doesn't. You know, it's one of those things, and I always, you know, when I watch these things, I try and see the good in them, but this really doesn't work, and it didn't feel like a De Palma film at all. And interestingly enough, I couldn't find any, you know, like we said at the beginning, he's, you know, unashamedly, you know, into sort of promoting his films and doing interviews for them and things of that nature. Well, I couldn't find anything on this because, you know, just there just doesn't seem to be any material out there. It's really weird. It's almost as if they knew it was a dud or whatever. But you know, it should work, because you know, there's like problem after problem, and you know, all of this sort of thing. But overall, it just, you know, you really don't care. You don't feel any tension. You don't really care for the characters. And I have to say, yeah, it's out of the De Palma canon that I'm aware of and that I enjoy, this one for me really is the dud in the pile.
Well, I mean, my problems with it is the fact that you have that middle section where you have the micrometeors where, you know, there's a breach in the hull, and then it immediately goes to them going into orbital insertion, because one that Tim Robbins is outside and he's like, we should check the hull, make sure everything's all right. And then one of the characters goes, oh no, negative on that, because we're going to go in orbital insertion now. And of course, then you see the shot of all the hull, it's all been sort of dented and hot. And then you see the engine and they start putting fuel into it. And you just see the fuel freeze and you go, oh, you fucking idiots. And so when they hit the go button, boom. And we all know it's going to happen because we see this thing floating in front of the engines. So again, no tension, because we know these idiots are going to hit the go button and explode the ship.
Yeah.
And then it goes straight into them being outside the ship and trying to hook up with a satellite. And this is where Tim Robbins, he
overshoots and
he's heading towards the planet, and he does the whole thing with his wife's trying to get him back, and she just...
Yeah, he does the whole what George Clooney ends up doing in Gravity years later, you know, it's that sort of thing.
Yeah, but we actually see what happens. He takes his helmet off and he suddenly becomes like instantly frozen, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, that, you know, but even that, you know, even that, which should be absolutely heartbreaking, you just kind of, I don't know, it really just felt flat. It's really weird. You know, I do find it quite bizarre you know, as somebody that you kind of understands, you know, filmmaking and production and things of that nature, how sometimes the mixture just isn't right and it just doesn't work. And this sadly is one of those films. There's a lot of good things going on in it, but it just doesn't gel together, and it doesn't, certainly it doesn't feel like it's done by, as I quoted him earlier, being the prince of suspense or whatever. There is no suspense. I mean, it's literally in space. There's no atmosphere, you know. it's
I think there is only one thing in the film that would have made it better for me, and that's at the end when they're in this escape capsule going back to Earth, and the Martian ship, you see it going flying by,
Yeah.
and it goes, it's very close. I would have loved it to hit the spaceship, the Earth ship, destroying both of them, and you go, yeah, that's how I feel about the film.
Well, of course, this is how they
Car
this
crash.
is how they deal with, you know, Gary Sinise's problem is he ends up deciding to be the one that goes with them, you know, to the next dimension, the next journey.
He's the one. He's the chosen one.
Yeah. But you know, you really good an actor as Gary Sinise is. I was really, you know, not feeling it at all. You know,
no.
Same with Tim Robbins. Same with all of them. I was just like, whatever. So
I mean, I enjoyed Don Cheadle in it. I thought he was good in it. But again, his character goes from being really nice father to when they find him on the planet, he's sort of they're playing it as if he's, you know, lost his mind a bit. But then you know he's going to be all right, and then he has a shave and a haircut, and he's back to normal.
Yeah.
Forget he was out there on his own for a year.
Yeah.
Forget that.
No, I know, it's weird. It's really weird. It doesn't work. It really doesn't. So I was pleased when I rewatched it that my memory of it was correct, and you know, I didn't have to go and find something else to be movie hell, because you know that was for me. So yeah, so there you go.
Oh well, so on to my pick, and my pick might be a bit controversial because there are a lot of people out there who like it, but unfortunately I don't, and that's Casualties of War.
Yeah, well, I have to say, you know, and I don't know whether this will be interesting. What will make this show interesting for listeners, if indeed we have any, but you know, I know you and I agree on a lot of things. You know, we find that out through the podcast, and indeed the films we've talked about so far tonight. However, I have to say, in this case, I absolutely do not agree. I think this is a wonderful film. So I'll let you do your bit, and then I'll I'll put up my case.
Okay. Well, the film has been a passion project for Brian De Palma. He was trying to make it for about 10 years, and of course the success of The Untouchables was what was able to finally get a green light on the project.
Absolutely, and the fact that you know, obviously Stone and Kubrick had success with Platoon and Full Metal Jacket as well, so they brought the Vietnam War thing to the mainstream slightly, you know. So yeah.
Well, that's one of my problems with the film, is that Brian De Palma is homaging those directors straight away. There's nods to Apocalypse Now.
Oh, totally.
There is definitely a massive nod to Full Metal Jacket, and of course Platoon as well. Right. Well, the thing about the film is it's shot as a thriller. It's the sequence. There's thriller sequence in it when really it should have been a drama about a very horrible thing that happened in the Vietnam War. Now, at the beginning, you get to meet the troops who are going to be in this, and you straight away you have this thriller sequence where they're out on patrol, and Charlie is getting closer, and Michael J. Fox's character falls into a foxhole.
Yeah, one of the Viet Cong tunnels. Yeah.
And he's stuck there, and of course, you know, none of the Vietnamese actually take any notice of his feet dangling there for quite a while until they get hit. And then you see one of them come out the dirt and suddenly goes, I'm going to stab him. You know, so you see him crawling along this tunnel about to stab him. And of course, Michael J. Fox is screaming for help. And of course, Sean Penn's character comes along and finally pulls him out just before the Vietnamese guy can stick a knife up his arse.
But the tension works. doesn't it?
It doesn't work. It doesn't. And you know why the tension doesn't work at all? Because the opening scene is of Michael J. Fox safely sitting in a train.
Oh yeah, they do bookend it with flash. Yeah, the Vietnam
Yeah,
sequence is a flashback essentially. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. And so at the end of the day, there is no tension because you know at the end of it, Michael J. Fox is going to come out of this all right. You know, he might be. Now, this is the thing. I think casting wise, Michael J. They I think they got the casting wrong.
right. Well,
I don't believe Michael J. I mean, Michael J. Fox has been very good at playing those kind of characters, sort of, you know, wide-eyed, innocent. But then it just reminds you of the character that Charlie Sheen played in Platoon, and who played it a lot much better.
yeah,
And of course, in the film, Michael J. Fox goes from wide-eyed innocent to jaded in like at 90 miles per hour. I mean, it's literally, you know, it goes so quick. While with Charlie Sheen's character, you see a progression.
yeah. I mean, Michael. Yeah, I mean, you know, in terms of when this had happened, I mean, Michael J. Fox was kind of man of the moment, having just come off the back of the Back to the Future sequels. So you know, he was very much sort of you know, hot property at the time. You know, 1989. And you know, from his point of view, his career had been, you know, what with Family Ties and Back to the Future, you know, it had been very much comedies, and he wanted to, you know, have a go at serious acting and try something very different in his career at that point.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's not bad in the role. I'm just saying it just the problem with the film is that you peg every character straight away. There's no subtlety about any character. And straight away, the rest of the troupe are a bunch of really unlikable people. I would think it would have been more interesting if Sean Penn and Michael J. Fox swapped roles.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I think it would have been far more interesting because you know that Michael J. Fox's character is going to be the guy who's not going to be involved in it. He is going to make the stand. He's going to make the right decision. He's going to be the guy who's going to be pushed around, but yet still he's going to stand. You know, he's still going to be a good guy. While all the other guys, you know, they're going to go ahead and do this stuff. Now, if you haven't seen the film, it's about a wartime atrocity that happens where they go into a village and grab this girl and take them on patrol with her because they wanted, you know, because they've been denied to going into town to have sex with local prostitutes, so they want some fun.
Yeah, it's actually based on a real. It is based on a. I mean, again, it's heavily dramatized, of course, but it is based on a real case and some real events. And you know, I kind of look at it as it's sort of a contained morality tale, but it's kind of on the backdrop of the Vietnam War. So it's you know, and it does feel like that. It feels like a sort of, this is a story that took place whilst the war was going on, but is not necessarily about the, you know, the, not overtly anyway, about the sort of politics and what was going on in the Vietnam War. It's subtly there, but you know, the story's really about these guys, you know.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think it probably would have worked better if it had been more contained than trying to be these sort of big action sequences, because there's the bit where so they reach wherever they're going, because this is, I mean, it's long, it's drawn out, this whole sequence of them getting to, you know, hooch they call it. And you know, they've this poor girl, you know, she's so traumatized, and they've made her have to drag all their equipment barefoot across this sort of rugged terrain, and she's all cut up, and her feet are all cut up and bleeding, and you know, she's in a horrible state. And you know, then they sort of have their jollies with her, and you know, and it's this whole sort of, so it's shot from a distance because they send Michael J. Fox's character to go, you know, on patrol, or you know, just to to get him out there, because
we won't have anything to do with it. Absolutely, he's kind of
But you see this sort of wide shot where you see them come out, and you know, you have that character who he keeps going on about how he wants a beer.
Well, you know, that was John C. Reilly's first ever role. That was John C. Reilly playing the guy who's very uncomfortable, so keeps saying, "Hey, Sarge, you know, I wish we had a beer. Don't you wish we had a beer?" Because obviously, you know, it's total peer pressure for him.
I'm so glad they told him to shut up, because I wanted him to shut up as well. But yeah, I read that he was an extra, and somebody dropped out.
That's right.
So,
and it gave him his break.
Yeah.
So...
But again, he was set up as this sort of very much sort of naive idiot character, you know, and so the whole sort of rape scene, you know, it's shot from a distance, and you see the guys sort of taking their turns, and then it turns out that it's Michael J. Fox's point of view, that he's been watching this while he's, you know, been standing guard. And of course Sean Penn comes up to him and, you know, starts trying to, you know, justify what he's done. You know, that line, you know, I walk in the valley of darkness and I fear no evil because I'm the meanest motherfucker in the whole valley. And you're like, okay, yeah. They find some Viet Cong along the river, sort of delivering arms, and they decide to take the ship out. And of course, this is Michael J. Fox's chance to run away with the girl, and he does it. And he's about to do it, and he's been able to convince her to trust him and get going, and he stops. He doesn't want to be a dessert, and I'm like, you know. And then of course one of the guys turns up, and you know, they all go back to their position by the river, and that's when they kill the girl, because this army boat turns up, very much like Apocalypse Now. And they're trying to shut her up because she's ill, she's coughing, she's got the flu, she's not in great, you know, and they're trying to shut her up.
Sean Penn's trying to get all the other ones to basically kill her for him, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And you know, they're all sort of bowing to peer pressure. I mean, you've got John Leguizamo, you know, he's one of them, and the other guy is Don Patrick Harvey, I think, who you know, De Palma's used in some other films as well.
Yeah, I've seen him in other stuff. He usually plays the bad guy.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with you on so much as you know, these guys are set up as pretty unlikable from the get-go. I mean, you know, Sean Penn, at the time, I mean, yeah, I remember when I first saw this, and all I really knew of Sean Penn was that he was sort of Madonna's husband, you know, didn't really, and he sort of plays this, you know, thuggy character in this, and of course, you know, goes on to work with De Palma again on Carlito's Way and whatever. And
that was a much better role.
Yeah,
much better role. Yeah.
You know, so I sort of hear what you're saying in the fact that, you know, this makes no bones about sort of who the good guy is, and the other guys are pretty unlikable, and there is no real sort of grey area. It is very black and white in that respect. And you know, it's very horrible what they do to this Vietnamese girl, and you know, the treating of her is very you know, it is hard to watch. And even though you've got these kind of voyeuristic elements, like you said, the sort of POV of Michael J. Fox's character, it's done very differently to how De Palma's done this previously, you know.
I think the problem is that it's very much a very stylistic film, and that you can see De Palma's style all over it, where a story like this didn't need that. It didn't need that gloss. It didn't need the entertainment value. It needed just that story to be told truthfully. And I think the problem was that De Palma was the wrong guy to tell that story. The De Palma of that time, if he had made that 10 years ago, I think it would have been a lot more down to earth and dramatic than being stylish and entertaining.
Yeah. I mean, he wanted, I know, from 1969 or 70 or whenever, when the article about this came out, he wanted to make it, and it was kind of a passion project of his in many respects. And of course, as you rightly said, because of the success of the Untouchables, it suddenly put him in a position where he was able to make these choices and tell this story that he wanted to tell. But yeah, it does have, unlike Mission to Mars, which doesn't really feel like it has any De Palma-esque stamps over it. This, even though it is this sort of small morality tale against the backdrop of Vietnam, it does, have a lot of his stylistic stamps on it. I mean, there is split diopter, there is Steadicam, etc., POV, etc. So interesting.
And also the score by Ennio Morricone just doesn't work either. I think it's just too much. The score is just too much for it. I mean, it where it worked in the Untouchables, in this just really didn't work. It was just too overpowering.
It might be slightly guiding, manipulative, if you like. But as I said, I remembered the film, and I say enjoyed it. That's kind of a hard term to use, because it is a hard watch in many respects, because it's quite brutal and quite nasty. Although obviously there is these guys do get their comeuppance at the end.
Well, I have to say, I that bit was so. Michael J. Fox, they come back, and Michael J. Fox goes to his. I don't think it's his lieutenant, is it? I think it's his.
Well, there's Ving Rhames is in it. Ving Rhames.
Yeah, but no. He goes to his friend, who he originally was joking about. Oh, they're gonna go to town and get themselves a girl just to have a bit of lay on when they're out in the field, And then he goes straight to him, doesn't he? He goes, "They did it, man. They did it. I can't fucking believe it." Oh, of course, you know what happens, because he gets injured, doesn't he?
Yes.
There's the shot where they fly him off in a medical hospital helicopter,
straight out of Apocalypse Now, yeah, because he looks at the fan and stuff.
Yeah, well, when he wakes up, what's the first thing? Yeah, he sees the fan, and of course there's lots of people screaming, and there's injured soldiers everywhere. And of course he gets up with a bandage around his head, and he walks out, and of course he finds his friend, and he's telling him right in the open. And of course, guess who's there? It's one of the other guys from his unit, and he's trying to interfere. And of course, his friend who says, "You got to go to the lieutenant. You can't go over him. You can't go straight to the captain. You got to go to the lieutenant." And of course, he goes to Ving Rhames. And of course, Ving Rhames does this whole speech about, what happened to a guy in his town, and the fact that what happened to him when his baby was being born, and they wouldn't let him into the hospital. So he got really angry and pissed off, and he started making a scene there. And of course, he got arrested, and they kept him in the jailhouse for overnight. And of course he wanted to kill people. And of course, he said, well, they just let me get it out of my system, and then I was fine. I was over it. And I think that's what you need to do. And he splits the unit up, doesn't it? Because Michael J. Fox can't let it go.
No.
And of course he goes straight to the captain, and of course the captain goes, well, these things happen, and do you really want to go through this? Because they won't do that much time. And, if I was them, I want some payback. And again, you're getting this kind of thriller element as well coming into it.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a bit thriller.
You're the captain played by Dale Dye.
Yeah, who's a real captain. Yeah.
Yeah, he's, since Platoon, he's always appeared in war films. And also he's been the consultant on that, especially all the Vietnam ones. And of course, the words coming out of his mouth is straight out of a thriller. I mean, I don't, there's just no humanity to it. It's just, it's stuff you would see in it makes for great lines in the trailer. I mean, the fact that they use his part of his speech again near the end, when all the guys are being, they've been sentenced, and you see him walk by, and Sean Penn whispers something to Michael J. Fox's character, and then you hear the voiceover go, If I was these guys, they're not going to do some real time, and I would want some payback. You know,
Yeah.
and it's,
Oh no, no, I know what you
I
mean. I
mean,
mean,
the whole sequence where Michael J. Fox goes to the bathroom and one of them puts a grenade in there, pure thriller again.
yeah,
And you know, of course, he confronts them after smacking one of them round the head with a spade, and says, you know, I told everybody, and you know what? They don't care. And again, it's just all this very, it's just
yeah.
so, it just, the tone is just so wrong for the story.
Right. No, I mean, I know what you mean. It kind of goes from a thriller to a courtroom drama to, you know, this, that, and the other. But
Mm.
I mean, it's written by a guy called David Rabe, who's actually a playwright. And I must admit, one of the things I do feel about it is it did have the feel of a stage play to it in some respects, you know, rather than a movie. You know, in some aspects, it has that sort of stage play feel. But you know, I hear what you're saying. I can certainly see your point of view on some of this, but you know, I thought that the film, you know, worked, and you know, the performances were good, and you know, you know, it did have some of the De Palma feel to it, definitely. One thing I thought was interesting about the whisper, the Sean Penn thing at the end is as you know, I'm a big fan of 24, and can't remember whether it's season 2 or 3, but spoiler for anyone that may not have seen 24. But in the first season, essentially Nina Myers, played by Sarah Clark, who's supposed to be Jack Bauer, you know, Kiefer Sutherland's colleague in it, turns out to be sort of a traitor at the end and ends up killing his wife and this sort of thing. And eventually, you know, throughout the second and third season, she's kind of like, you know, one of his nemesis there. And she eventually gets caught. And there's a scene when she's captured, and Jack Bauer goes over and whispers something to her, and you never actually hear what he says, right? And I often wonder whether John Cassar, whoever directed that particular episode of 24, was maybe a fan of Casualties of War, and kind of you know took that from that. It does make me wonder.
Casualties of War is not the only film that used that
Oh, I know.
that silent whisper. I mean, it was used in that Scarlett Johansson Bill Murray film, Lost in
Oh,
Translation.
Lost in Translation. Yeah, mind you, that was years
Yeah,
later. But yeah, okay.
yeah, but I mean, it's been used in other
Yeah,
films.
of course. Yeah. Well, nothing's 100% original, is it? But you know, but yeah, interesting. I mean, you know, I thought it worked. I like Morricone's score. You know, I think it was, yeah, it is slightly guiding, definitely. But you know, I thought in terms of a film, you know, beginning, middle, and end, and you know, journey, it worked. I mean, it didn't actually do that well in the end, because I think it came out something like the same time as Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and I think it was that kind of, people thought to themselves, do I want to go and see something that makes me laugh, or do I want to go and see something that's going to, you know, break my heart or whatever? And probably went for the former. But
Make you squirm more than make you cry.
well, there is a I've not seen it. I didn't go this far with it, but as I said, I did revisit the theatrical version of the film. But there is apparently
Yeah,
that came out sort of in the mid noughties, a DVD extended edition, which
right.
was overseen by Brian De Palma, which kind of adds some of the deleted scenes back into the film. And I don't know, I'll be honest, I haven't, you know, for this one I did actually watch all the 4 films that we're talking about. I actually did my homework and revisited them, but I have to admit I haven't gone to the extent of checking out the extended edition to see what that changes.
Well,
But
my personal opinion, it probably wouldn't make it any better.
fair enough. We've got that one, Simon. But hey, that's what keeps this stuff interesting, isn't it?
It does indeed.
We're not going to agree on everything, and but you know, I absolutely respect some of those points that you've made, and I totally concur with the fact that you know, there's no misguidance in this. You absolutely know which characters are not very nice and who the good guy is, and there's no trying to even like sort of shade any of that differently. It is very blatant on the nose. You know, with regards to the setup for the whole thing, and of course, yes, it is told as a flashback. So absolutely, we know that at the end of the day, that Michael J. Fox's character is going to be, you know, he's going to survive it, even though he's obviously still having nightmares about it because of the experience of the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind the end when, because one of the things about being on the train and the flashback is because he sees a girl who looks like the Vietnamese girl, and of course it is.
Yes,
it is her playing the same character.
It's played by her with a nose piece, and voiced by Amy Irving. As a bit of trivia.
So I didn't mind that last bit when she, you know, she says to him, you look like you've had a nightmare, and he goes, yes, I have, and she says, well, I think it's all over now and things will get better, and you go, yeah, okay, yeah, it's a nice way, sort of the end of the film. But as I say, we could have done without the bookend at the beginning where you see him on the train. If it started just from Vietnam, it would have made it the tension play out a bit more than
I see your point.
Knowing that he was going to survive this, you know, because that's the thing about war films, you don't know who's going to survive and who's going to make it back, and some of the best ones have killed off the guy you were rooting for. So, you know, but it's again, it was a very serious subject matter that, you know, it needed a more deft hand at somebody who was a lot more subtle than Brian De Palma was back in the day, and you know, it didn't need those thriller elements. It just needed to be told as it was, and without all these whistles and bells and, you know, all these different techniques. So well, I'm sure it's a story that will be told again, that somebody else will tackle, and hopefully they'll do a better job of it than Brian De Palma did.
Yeah, it's time for the remake. So there you go. Maybe there'll be a Vietnam War films will become popular again or something, because these things go in cycles, don't they? As we all know. So
they do indeed. So that wraps up another episode of Movie Heaven, Movie Hell.
It does. Oh, there's so much more to talk about with him, but absolutely, we've covered those films. So yes. Any other stuff will be for another time.
We highly recommend you go out and check out his other films.
Indeed.
So yes, so just to wrap things up, you can contact me via the Independent Runnings website, which is independentrunnings.com. And also we have a Facebook page. If you just type in Movie Heaven, Movie Hell, you will find us that way. And also, yes, we have a YouTube page. You can find these episodes on YouTube. Just if you search for Independent Runnings. And if you watch it on YouTube, it will help us with, we get advertising from that. So, you know, if you watch it that way, we get some pennies as well.
All right. Cool.
Yeah. And how can we reach you, Keith?
Yeah, well, by the time this is available, my YouTube page should be up and running, which will be British Eyles Productions, and Eyles is spelled Eyles, as in my surname. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my catalogue of short films that I've made so far on there for you to watch, share, like, dislike, comment on, get in touch, whatever you want to do, but it will be there. So that's British Eyles Productions, and as I said, Eyles is Eyles, which is how my surname is spelled.
So catch us next time on Movie Heaven, Movie Hell.
See you at the movies.